Okay, there's the recording. All right, aloha everybody. Again, my name is Ryan Peroy. I'm very happy to be here with you all. Thanks for coming and spending some time with us. Okay, and yeah, I'm just going to jump in with a quick overview of a little bit of what we do in the SDAV Lab here at University of Hawaii at Hilo. I like to certainly acknowledge everybody that supports us, and particularly this project, the Change Hawaii NSF Hawaii EPSCoR project has been great, but we've got lots of local partners that we work with. So I'm talking to you all from Hawaii Island, Big Island, here in Hilo. Beautiful. It's a beautiful day here. The sun is shining. University of Hawaii at Hilo campus. And yeah, very active place. And I'm actually housed, my position, I'm a professor here in the Department of Geography and Environmental Science. And lots of field work that we do here at UH Hilo with our students and getting them up to speed on different types of geospatial technologies. And I'm also currently the associate director, but next year I'll be the director of the Master of Science program in Tropical Conservation Biology and Environmental Science. So, and that's a really interesting interdisciplinary program. If anyone's curious about that, happy to talk to you about that. What the lab I run is the Spatial Data Analysis and Visualization Lab, or SDAV Lab. And we do lots of different work. And our mission is to apply geospatial tools to environmental problems of local significance, and then to disseminate those tools and knowledge to the larger island community. And it's a great group of folks in the lab. And I just highlighted here in red, a lot of these folks have been supported one way or another through this Change Hawaii project. And it's been just excellent, including Tori Valdez, who's a current undergraduate working with us. So just a little bit about some of the different projects we work on. We do a lot of mapping, so high resolution mapping, with drones, with helicopters. This is a footprint map showing all the places that we've collected data with helicopter, mostly for rapid ohia death, but also for some invasive species work. We do a lot of outreach for La Honua Earth Day and Ohia Love Fest, and we have a really awesome coloring book for kids on the lab website if you're interested in that. And we do capacity building across the Pacific. So out in Marshall Islands and Federated States of Micronesia, where we don't just sort of parachute in and collect data and leave. We try to train the folks there on doing their own data collection and data analysis for, again, remotely sensed data, primarily with drones. This is a product that we generated and worked with our partners to translate into Marshallese, right, to help and give information about agroforestry resources for the communities out there. A lot of the work that I've been doing over the last, it's crazy, decade or so has been associated with rapid ohia death and looking at changes to our forests over time. We use some artificial intelligence and convolutional neural networks to detect suspect crowns. And we don't just do that for rapid ohia death, and we don't just do it for drone imagery. This is drone imagery. This is satellite imagery. And so I'm kind of remotely sensed data agnostic. If it can help me, understand what's happening in the forest, I'll take any kinds of data that I can use. But we also look at invasive species. So this is a picture that my colleague, Dr. Roberto Rodriguez, took. And this is a kind of a nasty invader here, Myconia calvescens. And we do a lot of work trying to find Myconia, a lot of work on Maui in particular. So this is an example of one of the photos that we get. And we apply our convolutional neural network detector, and it can help us find individual Myconia leaves. And so we can share this information with, Maui Invasive Species Committee, and they can try to kill these plants. So this is an example. We do a lot of work with Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and others as well. And with Dan Jenkins at UH Manoa and others there, and other partners in Palau and beyond and Guam, we're also doing some work with coconut rhinoceros beetle, which unfortunately is recently here on Hawaii Island and is spreading. And I know over on Oahu it's terrible and it's even worse on Guam. And so these like characteristic V-shaped notches is something that's pretty easy for a convolutional neural network to pick up. And so we use that to help us identify potential ones. And so I'm just giving kind of an overview of some of the different projects the lab works on, and then I'm going to hand it over to Cepha. Waikoloa Village, which has been the primary site for coconut rhinoceros beetles on Hawaii Island. We recently flew this, and we're looking for evidence of, again, those kind of V-shaped notches. And this was an interesting operation, and I was actually really proud of my group. We flew it on December 3rd, and on December 4th, we shared geospatial coordinates of detected trees with our partners. And so this allows us to be kind of rapid response. And that information went into a map of some new aerial detections that had been missed by ground crews. They weren't able to see these fronds from the ground. And again, kind of sharing that information out. We're also using this imagery to look for mulch piles, which is quite important for, trying to, again, get rid of these damn beetles. So a lot of the work that my lab does is based on, imaging and trying to monitor and map things. But we also have kind of an arm of the lab's activities where we are trying to actively, interact with the forest and to try to help these problems, not just watch our forests degrade. And so we're also doing some work where we're doing aerial deployment of biocontrol. There is an improved biocontrol for strawberry guava, which is a pretty nasty invader here in Hawaii. And it's a big issue about, getting this biocontrol out into the forest, particularly the remote forest. And so this is what the biocontrol looks like. It's these leaves, which they have these galls on them with a little Brazilian scale bug that will then affect the trees if it is placed in the right location. And so how to efficiently get into the forest. And so we've done some trials with partners at U.S. Forest Service where we basically compared doing this from the ground and then doing it with a drone, because you want to get this biocontrol into the canopy. And we played around with bigger drones and designed some cool things with 3D printing, and then also helicopter dispersal. And just finished up an operation up the Hamakua coast where we released about 500 or so of these guys in the upper elevation forest. And so, yeah, I'm a geographer. I care about the landscape. I use remote sensing as a tool to help me learn about the lands, but I also am very interested in trying to not just watch things happen, but to do something about it. And then this is bringing me to turning things over to Cepha. We've got a big project trying to do tree species mapping at the individual tree level. Really excited about this work, and Cepha is an incredibly integral part of this effort. And so I'd like to introduce Dr. Cepha Percival. He's been with us about a year or so now, and he has a PhD at University of Kyoto in Japan. And he did his dissertation work looking at in Madagascar effects of fire and using Landsat, which is a kind of satellite passive optical sensor, and then spaceborne lidar, this JEDI. Really, really exciting stuff. And he's also recently released something which you guys are going to get a chance to play around with today, which is the main point of this. And so I'm going to stop talking pretty soon, which is called PyForestScan. And so he'll talk a lot more about this, but it's an open source Python library, that if you've got lidar point cloud data, you can calculate different forest metrics. And that's really important for thinking about carbon, for thinking about species identification, for thinking about change over time. And so I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Cepha. Again, my name's Ryan, and if you all have questions about anything I just quickly shared, always happy to take an email or chat with folks. But I'm going to turn this over to Cepha now.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Let me share my screen and we can get started. Okay, can everyone see this my screen okay? Right, excellent. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So as he mentioned, I'm going to be talking about some of the tools that we have built and workflows that we use. In particular, this Python library called PyForestScan, which we built in the SDAV Lab to calculate forest structural metrics from point cloud data that's collected from airborne sensors. So before we get started, just thought I'd explain a little bit about today's agendas. The primary goals of this workshop are to develop a better understanding of these forest structural metrics, to learn how to calculate and visualize them in a coding environment, using and learning more about point clouds and the Python programming language. And I'm going to hide this here. And of course, to learn how to use this library, PyForestScan. And so I'm going to split this workshop into two sections. The first is going to be this brief introduction of some of the concepts and to the programming environment that we're going to use. I'll show you all how you can use PyForestScan, and then in the second section, we'll work together through the steps uh, that I've demonstrated in the previous section, and play with some of the lidar data and calculate metrics like plant area index and plant area density and canopy height and others. Um, so having some basic familiarity of Python in this exercise is a plus, but it's certainly not required. And I hope that people can actively participate and ask questions in these interactive coding sessions. And um, to participate in the workshop itself, in the hands-on part, you only need to have a web browser, preferably not on a phone because it's a little hard to type with your thumbs, but anything with the desktop size screen and a keyboard. And if you have any questions anytime, I think you can just raise your hand and I'm happy to answer. Um, so great, let's get started. So I'm going to play this video. It's a very, very slow moving video in the beginning. But we're going to be talking about point clouds.
It's like he just froze. I can maybe chime in a little bit. Hopefully he's going to come right back. But
Z.
oh, there he is. I'll be quiet again. You're back,
Oh
Stephanie. You
no.
froze, but
Uh, am I still good?
yeah, you're good now.
Okay. In XYZ space. And so here we're looking at a cinder cone where we're kind of slowly levitating down closer to the ground. And the point cloud has been classified so that these green points represent vegetation, mostly trees, and the gray and brown colors are either unclassified or ground points. And this point cloud data set was collected with a lidar instrument on a small aircraft that flew over Hawaii Island between 2018 2020. LiDAR is a type of remote sensing data that uses laser pulses to measure structure on the surface of the Earth. And LiDAR is pretty common technology. I think most people's phones have LiDAR in their front-facing camera so that you can do facial scans and log into your phones. And it's used in so many different domains. And I use it a lot to look at forest structure, both from uh, the space, the air, and handheld devices. Um, and that's because LiDAR does just that. It provides spatial information of structure of the surface of the Earth. So as we come in closer, we can see the trees and shrubs, and I don't think any telephone poles, but maybe this little fence line right there. Um, and yeah, it's now all a little bit grainy. So this LiDAR data set that we were kind of zoomed into is of the entire island of Hawaii. It's got something like 137 billion points. So it's a really big data set. And once you're in close, it is a little bit on the sparser side. It has roughly on average 8 points per meter square. But some LiDAR data sets, especially ones that you can calculate, that you can collect with drones and terrestrial lidar devices will, capture so much more data. So it's really, really rich. And I have on my next slide a little link to the data itself as it's hosted online. So this is hosted by USGS with their 3DEP program, and I'm not so good at navigating this with my trackpad. I'm on my laptop at the moment. but you can kind of see, whoa, these points in space. Um, and so there aren't actually so many user-friendly programming tools that are available that allow us to look at such large data sets of point clouds and be able to analyze both individual trees. Like let's maybe like find one like whoops. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. Yeah, well, some of these individual trees are silk oak. And I have on my next slide, like this one, for example, if you have in this really dense, huge point cloud, you want to, isolate and say, hey, I want to know what's the height of this tree. And if you have a data set of 100 billion points, it's hard to do that. But if you know the spatial location of this tree, then you can, with this tool PyForestScan, be able to isolate that tree and then pull out metrics like the height, it's 18 meters tall, what its plant area index is, and other things, and visualize this in a little scatter plot. And so you can do this both at the individual tree level as well as at a more landscape level. So we can look across this portion of the cinder cone, what the canopy height model map might look like. And so here's still that same tree that we were looking at earlier. And so PyForestScan is a software library for coding in the Python environment. This means that it's a collection of functions that can be called on data using code. And this code is great because it's reproducible. It can interact with other programming languages and do other functions that do other forms of analysis, like computer vision stuff, where you can then take this point cloud and, if you have lots and lots and lots of them, understand the distribution of points that make up different, that are become characteristic of different tree species. And so PyForestScan allows, people to read these point clouds from airborne sensors and calculate these metrics that might be useful in other things. And it's fast and scalable and pretty flexible. So some of the canopy, some of the forest structural metrics that it can calculate are canopy height, which is just the distance from the top of the tree or canopy to the ground. Plant area density, which is the foliage density of plant matter at different height distributions, so at different canopy levels. Plant area index, which is sort of a measure of the total plant area per unit ground. So if you were to, take an aerial look at the plant from from top down, how much of the ground is covered by plant material. And foliage height diversity, which indicates sort of this vertical layering of vegetation. It gives you an idea of how diverse the structure of the tree is, like how many different canopy layers, or not tree, but forest, how many different canopy layers there are. And it's a very commonly used metric when thinking about, biodiversity and habitat. We're looking at habitats for birds and various and lots of things. And so it's used a lot in sort of habitat assessment, so identifying shelter and nesting spaces for wildlife, forest management, carbon stock estimation, and fire risk analysis, and several more. And so that kind of concludes my little introduction. The I lost Zoom. I'll find it again. The PyForestScan documentation exists at this website, pyforestscan.cefa.ai. It's here. So if after this workshop, you think is a tool that might be useful to you, you can go here and you can find sort of installation instructions. It'll tell you what prerequisites you'll need, kind of guide you how to install them, give you a little bit of information about how to do some of the functions it has. Talks a little bit about forest structure and the metrics that are calculated. I'm not sure why this has to refresh every time for the for it to come up, but yeah. And then there are some sort of Jupyter notebooks, which is what we're going to be using today in our workshop, that will help guide you so you can copy and paste code, change things. The documentation itself too has a link to a binder file, which is a more interactive. It's an interactive notebook that you can play with. It has all the stuff already installed, all the dependencies installed, and you can run in your own browser. And so for this workshop, we're going to head over to this site. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to log out of user 7 because I'm not going to be user 7.
Oh, looks like
Use thing.
he's back. I just need to start talking and then he comes back.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was just, how long ago did you lose me? Just a minute?
Yeah, just 10 seconds or less. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I will demonstrate some of the stuff first, and then we can go through everything together as a group, and I'll share out um, usernames and passwords for this thing. And I will pause here though for a second to ask if there are any questions so far. I know that was quite a lot of information at once, and I'm also going to try to find my second Zoom screen again. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, Nicola, go ahead.
Um, I'm wondering if there's any chance of the USGS website going down at any point soon.
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I think we'll leave it at that. Hopefully not. We'll say hopefully not.
Yeah, the USGS website is the way that they serve this data is really, really excellent because it allows us to, as you'll see, have a reference to this huge data set all at once. And then just with that single URL, then we can go and say, oh, now tell me about the forest here, or tell me about the forest here, or actually, I want to do the whole continental United States, and I'm going to divide it up into chunks and let it do its thing there instead of having to manage, loading data into memory all at once. And so, yeah, I hope not. So I will. Are there any other questions? Jacqueline, yeah.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Good. Okay. So, couple things. So, I'm wondering if this would work for how well it might work with the point density for montane bogs. That's kind of where my research site is, so not a lot of height. And I haven't really worked with that kind of low vegetation before, so I'm just curious if you think, it's still this is like still a good tool for that.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of my research is mostly focused on trees. And so a lot of these metrics are, certainly looking at the forest with, with a lot of trees in them. And but I think if your work, it could be useful for visualizing, for processing a lot of data, because there aren't so many tools that allow you to do that. And some of the metrics, it you get to choose as the programmer what scale you want to look at things. And so when you calculate plant area index, which is very similar, which can be almost identical to leaf area index in some places, and you can say, oh, I want a z step size of 50 centimeters or whatever makes sense for your scale and your resolution. So there's like the flexibility and kind of freedom for the developer, the researcher to decide what works best. So yeah, maybe worth trying, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so if there are no other questions, or if there are, uh, just start talking, and I'm going to, in the meantime, try to get this going. I'm going to log out of user 7. I was just making sure that things are working, and I'm going to log in myself.
Yeah, and if I can just chime in quick. So the way that we're thinking of running this is that Cephala will just do a quick kind of demonstration of the Jupyter notebook here and click through some things. And then we'll provide every single person on here kind of an individualized login so they can access and do exactly what you're seeing here. But we thought he would just run through a few steps first, and then we'll all be able to do it together. And we'll send out in the chat a bunch of information for you guys to log in and access your own.
Right, exactly. And so once you've logged in, as I just did, you'll see this view. And so this is a Jupyter notebook, which is a very useful tool for programming in Python, because you get to run these little, they operate in individual cells. I just hit all of them. And so you can run things one cell at a time. And some of these cells are just text written in Markdown. So there's no code here. It's just sort of more instructional. And other text is the code. So this is some Python code. This is what, like, the first block is to import all of the necessary functions and modules that we're going to use in this exercise. So a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of Jupyter notebooks. Once you get started, it's going to spin up what's called a kernel. Anytime there's some sort of if there's some sort of a problem, like it freezes or things start to go crazy, you can always interrupt the kernel. So if you click the kernel tab and you can hit restart, and then it will basically dump everything from memory and restart with a clean slate. And you can go again, and you have to go sort of one step at a time. So we'll start by, we can't call, for example, some of these functions like read lidar, this read lidar function. We can't use this until we import this. So we have to execute this cell first, and then we'll move down the document. To execute a line of a block of code, it should be highlighted. So it should have a blue box around it. And if you hit, I think if you're on Windows, Control Enter or Shift Enter, and if you're on a Mac, Command Enter. Matthew Lucas is getting an error getting to the site. Is anyone else getting an error? Has anyone else gone there so far? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. I'll just continue going through and then I'll make sure there's no problems. And so yeah. So whoops, go away normally. You can also, to execute a block of code, click this little play button. So I'm going to highlight this one, and I'm going to execute this first block, play. It's going to, you'll see the square brackets with a number. That means that I've done that one. It was the first one I executed. And so then I'll move on to so that was just importing all of the functions that were needed. And yeah, Nicola.
I'm not seeing a screen sharing. Am I the only one?
Oh my goodness.
I see it.
I see the screen share.
Oh,
you do?
Where is it?
Huh.
Yeah, I see as well.
Okay, yeah, it does say I'm sharing.
Okay, sorry, that's my bad. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. It is good to be able to follow through. So yeah, hope you can locate it. So but we haven't gone through much. So yeah, that first one, you execute that, and then we'll go into the next code. So this first part is all about importing data, and PyForestScan, it uses software and developing software. It's all you build upon what's been done before, and there's really fantastic tools by Hobu and Howard Butler and Connor Manning, people from PDAL and Entwine. And they've developed some really, 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 really powerful tools for working with point clouds. And so PyForestScan leverages those tools and is that's what allows it to read stuff like what's on the USGS 3 website, that huge file. So here is the path to that point cloud. It's hosted in an AWS bucket. So this is the URL to the point cloud file. Its file format is EPT. There's lots of different file formats for point clouds. So I'll execute that so that we have now in memory this variable EPT path. So I can always add another block of code or another cell. I can, so for example, add that below, and I can say print EPT, path. If I execute that, we'll see that EPT path is this variable that this string that we just assigned to this variable. So because that point cloud has 100 billion points in it, we don't want to, things will blow up. It'll be problematic for this little server. We can't read the whole thing at once. We're going to define a sort of a bounding box in the form of x min, x being like sort of longitude, x min, x max, y min, y max. So we have this little rectangle, and we're going to say in this area, and you can pull out these coordinates pretty easily in any other GIS system. So if you're familiar with ArcMap or Q, or even just Google Maps, you can like right click and say what's here and get the coordinates. This is using a UTM coordinate reference system, so it's not lat long, but it's just different projection. We can see what that projection is by actually in the PyForestScan, we have a little utility function that allows us to get the spatial reference system or coordinate reference system. And so I'm going to execute this and we'll print it. Is that for me? Thank you. And we will read the point clouds. I should have started that earlier because it does take a minute. So this coordinate reference system for this is EPSG 3857. And before we go further, it's good to understand a little bit more about the point cloud that we're working with. And actually, I should say though, I should just explain this one real quick. So what we did here is I called the read lidar function from PyForestScan, and this function we imported earlier in this cell block. So from PyForestScan.handlers. So PyForestScan is the library. Handlers is in Python world, it's called a module, and it has a collection of several different functions, and one of them is read lidar. So we've imported this read lidar function so that we can now use it, and then we call it. And this function, if you look at the documentation, we look at the handlers module, and we can go to read lidar. We'll see that it gives you some information about this function, what it takes, input file, SRS bounds, etc. And so now we have in memory this point cloud data that's clipped to these bounds. So how are we so far? Is everything pretty good? All right, seeing some thumbs up. So if anytime you have any questions, just raise your hand. And then so before you continue, it's good to understand a little bit more about the point cloud data. Point clouds can exist in various forms of quality. You can do lots of some processing operation to classify, for example, points, which is very useful and necessary for some things. Like if you want to calculate height above ground, you need to know which points represent ground. And sometimes a point cloud file already has that data classified for you. Other times it doesn't, and you need to do it. So we can check to see, for example, by reading the point cloud to see if it has this classification field. We can use another Python library, NumPy, to find the unique classes and the number of points within each class. So I'm going to execute this block of code. And so we can see that for class, and these are numeric classes, class 1, there is that 10 million, no, 1, 2, 3, 1 million points in this little block, in this little rectangle. And class, so this is using using the last sort of naming convention or file format convention. So class 1 represents unclassified points, class 2 represents ground. So there are some classes, there is ground. Class 5 is high vegetation, and 7 is noise. And so yeah, we see that class 2 exists, so we don't need to classify ground points. But if we wanted to classify ground points, we could. It's kind of useful to remove any statistical outliers. And if you remember in this thing, whoops, there are some points floating in space. Looks like some trees floating in space over here. So that's noise that should be removed from the data before we do any analysis. And so we can run, and I'm not going to run it now because that is a little bit more computationally intensive, this function to remove statistical outliers and clean them. And more information exists in the documentation. And then the other sort of field that is really it that we really depend on when we're using PyForestScan and we're looking at forest structure, these point clouds, is understanding the height of the point relative to ground. So we want to know what the height above ground of each point is, because from that we can calculate all of the metrics basically. And canopy height is a very obvious one. The highest point above ground is going to be the canopy height, maximum canopy height for if you're looking at an individual tree, it's that tree, et cetera. So we can see if height above ground is in the point cloud data. And we can see this returns false. It's not. So height above ground is not like a standard field. It's a custom field. Some libraries like PDAL will calculate this, and you can add it to your point cloud as a custom field, but it's not a standard field. Standard fields for geometry are X, Y, and Z. So you have height above sea level is Z. But we want height above ground. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to read the lidar point cloud again with the same data, and this time have this height above ground HAG argument set to true. And so when I do that, it's going to, whoops, I copy pasted from an earlier thing. EPT is not defined. This is good. A little error. Name error. EPT is not defined, right? I haven't set EPT as a variable in memory. Instead, here I have EPT path. EPT stands for entwined point tile format. It's just the format of the data. So I'm going to correct this and say EPT path and hit Command Enter. And it's going to take a little bit longer to load this time because it's calculating height above ground. And it's using sort of a triangulation approach. So like a triangulation or something network, TIN, irregular network. And you can also calculate this height above ground, because you don't just want like points of ground, you want like a surface of the ground. And so that surface can be triangulated using this argument, or you can also load in a digital terrain model, a DTM, and have that. So if you have a very good DTM, you can incorporate that, and then it will just take the measurement of each point above that DTM as the height above ground. So now that we have that, oh yeah, so here's that little note. We've read, so we're here, 8, because we did 6, and then we had to go back to this one, or something. No, I think we ran this twice, 6, 7, 8. So now we can visualize these points. We can see, hooray, what they look like. So for people who are familiar with Python, point clouds, what we defined here is saying read lidar. It's an array, so it's a list of things, and it could potentially be, when you're reading a lot, you can be reading a collection of lidar files. This time we're only just reading one, and so we're indexing that list, that array, to the first element. There's only one element, so that's what this square brackets and 0 is. So we're going to plot there's a visualization function called plot2D. Let's plot the point clouds, scatter plot across X and Z, and color by its intensity value in the lidar intensity value. There's a lot of points in here, so it is going to take a minute. And I do think, though, that even though I don't know how many people are in here, it should be okay for all of us to be doing this at the same time. This is also a bit of an experiment. So once that loads, let's see. There we go. So we see the side of the pu'u here, all the points, and they're colored by intensity. And we can color by different values. Data doesn't look so bad, like there's no obvious outliers, like no points floating in space. But if we wanted to, we can remove the outliers and clean them. Because if we saw earlier that there were 233 points that were identified as that were labeled as class 7 by whoever classified this thing. So person classified this, and we can remove those sort of outliers. Not only we can remove them by saying anything that's 0.7 is noise we want to remove, is class 7 we want to remove, but also you can use sort of like statistical outlier methods and say any statistical outliers we remove. And if we do that, that's going to take a minute too, because that takes a little bit more time. And then when we look at the different classes again, we'll see that goes to 0. And then once this is done, once these 3 things are done, I'm going to pause here, and then we'll go through what I've done so far together, and then the rest of the document as a group. So we'll calculate a DTM, we'll visualize that DTM, we'll visualize forest metrics. We will create voxels, canopy height model, plant area density, plant area index, and all the other functions. So now we see that there's no more class 7 after cleaning, removing any statistical outliers. And we can then plot again, but this time instead of coloring by intensity, we can choose to color by this new height above ground field. And then I'm just going to do some things preemptively. And while those are running, just check to make sure that there are no questions so far. All good. So this is plotting again the same point cloud function, 2D, but this time instead of across Z, where you get the elevational gradient as well as the stuff above ground, the height of stuff above ground. Now we're just kind of normalizing to ground, and there's all the points in here. And there are other tools too to plot, like slices, so you don't see the whole thing across X and Z, or X and height above ground, but X and height above ground across like some corridor, Y equals something. And you'll see here though that there are some kind of what looks like points below ground, and so that's just because of this this ground sort of estimation with this triangulation method is not perfect. It's pretty good, but it's better when you have much larger areas and more points. And so we can clean this up a little bit too by just removing points that are less than 0. Height stuff with negative heights, because that's kind of that throws a wrench into things. And so that's what this filter hag function does. And then we can visualize that again. And we can now, this time I've colored by classification. And so everything of class 5 is yellow, and anything that was labeled ground is like purple. And yeah, we have a flat bottom now. So I'm going to pause here, and then I'm going to we're going to try to get everybody set up, and I'm going to check to make sure that there isn't some strange error happening.
Well, I guess I should
Oh,
talk. There we go. That's all it takes is for me to chat again. Excellent. You're back, Sefa. You just paused for a moment, but yeah, I think people are chomping at the bit to I hope try to get started on their own. So and looks like we've just released into the chat the information for logging in.
yeah. So you'll have to scroll through that little list in chat to find your name, but everybody has the passwords are all the same. It's all PyForestScan, lowercase. The users are just incrementing WS-1 from 1 to however many. So looks like there's 37 so far. So you want to go to I'm gonna just open up a incognito window and go to workshops.cefa.ai. So once you're here, you want to enter the username that you found, and then the password, and hit sign in. And once you're in, you should see a screen that looks like this, and you'll only see this activity1 extended file. If maybe I could, if people are at that stage, maybe like react with a thumbs up or something, and then I have some indication of how many people are where. If you get a 403 forbidden one, just like try refreshing the page and logging in again. It happens to me sometime, and I just set this up last night, so I haven't resolved all the little things. Cool, nice. Got some people in. Right on. Great, great. Seeing more thumbs up. No, no more, no other errors. No one has experienced any errors so far, besides that 403. Okay, I wonder what happened to. There was one in chat that was mentioned, so hopefully, it's not something. Okay, so once you're in, on the left-hand side, this is this little sort of directory. It shows all the files that are in your user folder. Unfortunately, you don't have the ability to like create new files and do anything. You just have to work with what we have, but you can add and change the code. So if it's hidden, if you click this folder icon, you'll see it. If you double click on activity1 extended, then it will open up this thing. So I'm going to close this other one. And we'll see there. And yeah, why don't let's try this first one. So hit Command Enter, and you'll see, one. We've launched it. And if you want, feel free to go at my pace, or if you want to go faster, that's fine. As I go, I'll explain a few things that I may not have listed earlier. This is something you can just ignore. There is some problem with this virtual environment that I didn't have time to fully resolve. So in addition to the PyForestScan functions that we're importing, we also depend on some other libraries. These are really, really powerful, excellent, useful Python libraries. NumPy is for numerical, is for working with like linear algebra and arrays and just numbers. It has all the number stuff. And GeoPandas is a great way it has really nice spatial data support. So if you are loading, for example, Esri shape files or GeoJSONs or any sort of GIS data, GeoPandas is the library to use in Python. And because it's kind of a long one to type out, just calling it GPD for short. All right, so let's try reading this point cloud. Maybe if anyone's already read the lidar data, give me a thumbs up. I'm gonna skip ahead to reading the point cloud because we're overriding that point cloud's variable. I want to read the point cloud again, but this time with ag equals true. So we have height above ground. So this is a good test because we're all hopefully running this and we're 37 people in this EC2 instance. It's no problem so far. Is anyone gotten past this first activity? Oh, actually, there is an activity. Yeah. So before you read lidar, if you feel motivated, if you want to check if classification field is in the point cloud, you can type in this box and execute that box and see, true or false if it's there or not. You can give that a little go. A lot of coding too is sometimes feels a little bit monotonous because it's a lot of copy and paste. A lot of things you can just copy and paste, but when you do copy and paste, you just have to be careful that you're copying what you mean to be copying and pasting where you mean to be pasting. I've pasted code into chats a lot of times. Especially Slack, because Slack is just like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. So I'm gonna visualize this now, go down. So now we're visualizing. So under activity 1, after reading the lidar with hag equals true, going to visualize the points with coloring it by intensity. So we'll see, because the y dimension is z-axis, so we'll see this elevational gradient of the trees. And I'm going to skip ahead too and just hit Command Enter for the next row and the next row and the next row, so that I'm going to get to the new plot, which is plotting height above ground. And then I can hit Command Enter on the next one, clean point cloud. So I'm going to filter a height above ground, and then I'm going to sit back and have some of my this is Vaiti Polo lemonade, salmon lemons. Yeah, Nicola, you have a question?
I just had a question about the outliers again. Like what was the math on that? It was like statistical outliers.
Yeah, I didn't explain it, but if you go to the PyForestScan documentation and website, I wonder what I wrote there in explaining it. Let's see, filters module, remove outliers and clean. It yeah, it doesn't really explain here, but there's other documentation that explains it in other places. I can't remember, to be honest, what it is exactly. So I guess there's some k-means clustering or something involved because yeah, but yeah, I if you are curious, I'm happy to talk about it over email or chat or something. I can send you some documentation to where that exists. Yeah, at a deeper level.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if it's like, does that mean that really tall trees are removed, or is it like sort of data that, it shouldn't be a tree that tall that should be in this area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It will just really be like an isolated point that's kind of,
Okay,
on its own. Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So I went ahead and I'm now at the point where I've colored by intensity. I've cleaned the point clouds by filtering height above ground. And so, yeah, is another activity to, if you want to, instead of just entering, you can find the function. So if we want to plot now these clean point clouds, but instead of by intensity, if we want to color by classification, we can, how do we do this? So I'm just going to go ahead and you can go ahead to sort of, so we're doing again, whoops, plot. We're plotting in 2D these cleaned point clouds. That's the variable. Actually, I'm going to do this for short. I'm going to say, you know, points equals clean point clouds. We're going to do this later too. So I'm assigning that to a variable, points, and then x equals x. And I don't want to, now I'm lazy. I don't want to write the whole thing out again. So I'm just going to copy paste. But we're not coloring by intensity. I want to color by spatial. Enter. Give that a minute. I'm just going to move this guy over here so I can. If you get a little save error, you can just ignore it. It's not so important. Oh, did I lose? Am I frozen? No, I'm not.
Yep, you're good. Yep.
Okay, so that's still running that one. I'm going to skip ahead while I let that run. So in this next section,
I'll try my trick. Hopefully it'll come right back. But I think he was just about to ask, hopefully everybody's in a good place for getting through that part one. You froze there, Cepha, but I was just asking if, hopefully everybody's gotten through part one and are ready to go for part two, and if there's any questions or anything.
Okay, yeah.
I'm having trouble. It says connecting to kernel.
Okay, let me see. Is anyone else having a similar connecting to kernel issue? Yeah. Okay, so I guess if we all try plotting the thing at the same time, that becomes maybe a little bit too much for this server to handle. So what I am going to do, yep, kernel died. So if your kernel dies, if you're having trouble connecting to kernel, and this can happen too on your own computer, if you're on working with data that becomes too large and too much for the computer to handle, you just got to kind of roll with it. So you can then restart the kernel. And this is a good thing. I mean, it's one of the good things about coding and doing sort of this sort of GIS and spatial data analysis and coding is that you've documented all of your steps. So if something does happen, like if your computer crashes, I mean, it'll painful, but you can always just like click the run all button and it will run them all, and you'll get to where you were. So but anyway, so to rectify this, we're going to restart the kernel. So click the little this little icon at the top next to the stop button. It's the circle with the arrow, or you can go to the menu bar and hit kernel and hit restart. Actually, if you do that, go to kernel and click restart and clear outputs of all cells, so that way you know what ones you've run and which ones you haven't. So once that's done, you can it's like, let me just make sure there's no issues. Okay, so once that's done, you can or there we go. You can run. Oh no. Hmm. Maybe we do just need to give it a moment to breathe. Darn, it was going so smoothly until we all plotted at the same time.
I think in the top right, you can see a little energy icon. It says disconnected. The
Yeah.
lightning bolt. Yeah.
Just to let you know, Seth, there is a question here in the chat. Can data
Ah,
shader
yep.
be used for the plotting instead of matplotlib?
So the Python, the PyForestScan library, these visualization functions that we're using, yeah, they're just kind of, utility functions that are calling matplotlib behind the scenes to make these very simple plots. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm not, there's no, there are no utility or kind of wrappers for data shader. But you can, the beauty of open source software is you can go into the source code and then you can see what what data exactly is being plotted, because it's just sort of X and Y and Z points, and then yeah, use whatever visualization library you like. So short answer is I guess yes, but you have to do it yourself. um, okay, I'm just gonna try to restart this one more time and run this again, but I think close it and open it up again. So I'm monitoring our sort of CPU utilization. We're not super high or at 50%. 504.
I think if you reload the page, you might get a 504 error. The server might not even be connecting.
Yeah, but I don't see any indication of it having gone down. Man. Hmm. Just give me a few minutes to try to resolve this.
So while Sefa is trying to unbreak the machine, I think everybody already may have this, but I just again I put the PyForestScan link into the chat, and maybe not a bad opportunity to just, if you're interested, look through some of the documentation that's listed for the library, which does have the background information that he was highlighting for some of the functions, and can also give you an example of some of what it's able to do.
Hmm. Well, in the meantime, I'm gonna just I seem to be completely kicked out of this space now, so I can't SSH into it or anything. Maybe restart it.
So, but if that is the case, do you want to maybe just walk through some of the examples from the PyForestScan that talks about, the voxels and some of the calculations? So at least look at some of those visualizations.
Yeah, that's what I'll have to do, unfortunately. But if people are interested, you can, go back later today and go through, finish that workshop at your own pace, and I'll just have to kind of walk through and explain it right now, and yeah, that's unfortunate. I will let's see. I will load this up. So is this running? It's a good question. Yes. Okay. So this is running on my local machine. This is the same. This isn't the same worksheet. The workshop activity notebook had kind of everything wrapped into one. It had lots, and it had these little activity questions and stuff. So this is just a little bit more focused on just calculating the forest metrics. And there's also some ones for, like, for example, processing very large point clouds. This all, creating tiled metrics. So this all exists in the documentation link, so you can run these as well with some of this data. So I'm going to read the lidar with height above ground equals true. I'm going to just skip ahead to where. Oh yeah. So filter, we've done this step already. Filter height above ground. So because the read lidar will read an array of point clouds, I'm going to then have set that first element in that array to the variable points. And so now we're at this stage where we can start thinking about calculating forest structural metrics. And the way we're doing this is we're going to be thinking of units in space called voxels. So when you look at a photograph, you have pixels. This is a two-dimensional cell. Each cell has a value. A voxel is the three-dimensional it's that three-dimensional volume of a pixel, maybe. And we're going to set what our voxel size is going to be. And that's important because that determines how, that's part of how these attributes these metrics are calculated. It's measuring how many points go through a voxel into the other end, and how many don't, how many enter versus how many leave. There's more to it, but that's kind of a little gist, a little summary. And so I can set the voxel resolution. This is in Python. This is called a tuple. It's data structure. So the first element here is the X resolution. This is the Y resolution, and this is a Z resolution. And so then we're going to bin all of the points into voxels. That's what this assign voxels function does. So I'm going to run that. And then with that, now we're ready to calculate canopy height, the canopy height model. I'm just going to restart and clear all outputs real quick, and then run this again. And so it's then going to calculate canopy height with the points that we've read and the voxel resolution that we've set. And points per square meter, there may not be a point in your voxel, so you'll have a gap. And so then you can have, there's some interpolation methods where if you wanted to, you could, have some linear interpolation to fill in those gaps. And once that's done, then I hit enter again. And there we have our map of canopy height. And so, yeah, these little white things along the edges are these gaps that I was just mentioning, which is great. And then again,
so sorry, Seth, but what we're seeing there, just to be clear, is at a visualization of these voxels, but at a 5 meter by 5 meter, right, X and Y grid cell size, and then basically the canopy height at that 5 meter by 5 meter basis. That's what we're seeing for this section of the point cloud.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, and you have a question in the chat here.
I will scroll down. If I adjusted the bounding box to the MHI, sorry, you gotta help me with MHI, what MHI is. Main Hawaiian Islands. Yeah. You won't be able to do it. It will probably it should, I think, say don't do that because that is a little bit too much. So I wasn't going to cover it in this in this workshop, but if you look at the documentation and the examples, there's this working with large point clouds, Jupyter Notebook 2, and it gives you some instructions on how to tile some of these metrics. So you can read, for example, for the main Hawaiian Islands, you have that data set. Let's say it's one data set, this one ept.json file. You can't process it all at once, but you can work in it in chunks, in tiles. And so you can define, set like, okay, 1,000 kilometer by kilometer meters, and then calculate PAI across that. And the main Hawaiian Islands, it's a pretty big area, so it'll take some time. And I'm working on trying to, leverage like HPC clusters and stuff to make this even more scalable and faster, but not quite there yet, but should be soon. But yeah, good question. Thanks. So I'll move on. So plant area density, we can so given the voxels and sort of a voxel resolution, this voxel resolution is this sort of the depth, and this square brackets with the -1 voxel resolution we defined earlier. This is a little bit of Python syntax. So this is the variable. It's a tuple. Each of these tuples has an index. This is the 0th index, the first index, the second index. -1 is the last index. So we're saying the voxel resolution for whatever this is supposed to be here. It's we want the last value. We want the z, the height. That's what the value we're getting there. So calculate that, and then we can plot PAD across. This is plant area density at the sort of at some index, the 6th index or 5th index along the z-axis. If I set this to none, it'll show plant area density all kind of squashed together with the maximum, so collapsed by max across the y-axis. So this gives you some indication of sort of forest structure, and this can be useful to look at like the density of understory, for example, or like the distribution of plant matter over sort of vertical distribution of plant matter. And then we can calculate plant area index from PAD, and we can plot this, and we can see it in the same way that we saw canopy height. So this is each cell is a 5 meter by 5 meter given by the voxel resolution variable we set earlier. And the color is this, represents plant area index, with lighter yellows being higher values. And then finally, and this is the last metric here, we can calculate foliage height diversity with the calculate FHD function. And when I run this, and then we can visualize this using the same sort of these little wrapper functions to help visualize. We can see sort of this map of foliage height diversity. And that's it for this document. And I think that we're supposed to, the Zoom call ends at 1:30. Is that right? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can maybe start the surveys
Yeah.
if you're almost done. Okay.
Yeah. No. So that was the last thing. Except if there are any questions. I'm so sorry about that little server technical snafu. We'll be really happy to, if anyone's interested. I think if my email, I'm gonna email in chat. You can send me an email. I'd be very happy to walk through this with anybody. But yeah, if there are any questions, please ask. Right on.
Thank you, Steph and Ryan. This is a really great workshop. Don't worry about the technical glitch. That's worries. But it was just really useful, really exciting to see. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, no, we appreciate the opportunity to share some of this great work Ceph is doing with you all, and hopefully you can use it. And yeah, if there's any questions along the way, happy to try to answer those. So yeah, Shivani has a survey here if folks are willing to complete this.
Oops.
Yeah, and certainly if anyone has any questions or excited ideas about applications or anything that just want to chat with us while we're here, happy to do that. Otherwise, thanks for the survey and hope everyone will have a wonderful weekend. But we can definitely stick around if there's any questions or anyone wants to chat about anything.
Hi, Safa. I have a question. I was just curious if it was okay to post the information about this on our EPSCoR website with maybe just kind of like a description. I think it would be great for folks to see it there, if that's okay.
Yeah, totally. I can after this, I can email you a little description if that's and the link if that's helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Just yeah, no worries. Thanks. All right.
Thanks everyone for joining us, and thanks for taking the time to give us your evaluation to the surveys. If there are no further questions, I think maybe we can call it to a close.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Happy
Great.
Friday.
Happy Friday. Take
Yeah.
care, everybody.
Bye.